Because you did not give respect, I'm nice, I should also be respected. Lord Chaitanya said, don't tell me about it. If it comes, that is by way of the Lord's arrangement. If it doesn't come, it doesn't affect our devotional mentality. We're not dependent on receiving anything, we're only giving. Well, we will all naturally receive by giving, but one should not look to receive anything, but the opportunity. Give up mundane talks. Think about, like, don't think about Vaikuntha and Lakshmi Narayan, but serve the jewel of one's own heart, Hare Krishna and Narayan. These are all of the preceding verses. And if you want to get rid of an artist, cry out to Krishna, not just call out, but cry out to the killer of Baka. Bakasura represents deceit. Okay. And we heard, and Raghunath Das Goswami uses some strong language to really make his point of how one's attachment to anything material is no better than donkey urine. Hare Krishna. Don't bathe in donkey urine. Bathe in the nectar of Krishna, the light of Krishna consciousness in the process of devotional service. The three kinds of persons, two kinds of householders. Ones who are actually pious and work simply for pious activities. Those who are actually devotees, but still they also have certain material tendencies. And also the pitfalls of the sannyas order. Those who are in the renounced order of life. So it goes on. Then we start to move into the mood of Vrindavan again, coming back with verse number 8, which we heard yesterday. And he says, with pleasing words worship Sri Giridhari here in Sri Vrindavan Dham. Out of all the places for worship, it says Mathura is wonderful, but higher than Mathura is the forest of Vrindavan. And higher than the forest of Vrindavan is Govardhan. And the most sacred of all places within Govardhan is Radhakund. And Raghunath Das Goswami, he aspires to live at the feet of Govardhan and serve Govardhan. And where is his bhajan kutir? It's in Radhakund. If you've been there, you'll see they have a constant kirtan that's been going on for how many years? How long is that kirtan going on in Raghunath Das Goswami's bhajan?
500 years now.
500 years continuously. It doesn't stop 24 hours a day. You can go there. These what sometimes is 1 or 2 or 5, sometimes more people chanting, but the kirtan continues. Now we go into the mood of Vrindavan again. So we can chant the verse. It's on the board, number 9. I really am not so attuned to the particular melody, so I'm going to not try to make a fool of myself by trying to do it. So I'm going to chant the prayer that we use for Brahma Samhita. Marishvanatave Rajapika Chandra Rajavane Marishvanatave Swarim Tanata Vakaru Atula Sakti Vetulalitam Swarim Tanata Vakaru Sakti Vetulalitam Vishaka Siksan Vitarana Guru Tva Priya Saro Vishaka Siksan Vitarana Guru Priya Saro Salarika Rati Dvatvam Smaramanaha Smaramana. Oh mind. Meditate on. Raja Vipina Chandram. Krishna, the moon of the Vrindavan forest. Vishanath Ave. As the Lord of Might, leader and controller. Sri Radhika. Rajavana Ishwari. Sri Radha, the Queen of the Braja forest. Tannatave, as his dearest object of love. Tu Lalitam, and Lalita. Ta Atula Sakhi Ve, as the incomparable friend. Vishakam, Vishaka, Siksali Vitaranam Gutave, as the foremost guru distributing the teachings of love. Priya Sara Gira Indro, Radhakund and Govardhan. Tatriksha Lalita Rati Datve, as giver of the sight and love of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. Translation. And again, he addresses his mind. O mind, meditate on Krishna, the moon of Vrindavan forest, as the Lord of my leader, Sri Radhika. Meditate on Sri Radhika as the most dear object of love. Meditate on Sri Lalita as her incomparable friend. Meditate on Vishaka as the foremost guru distributing the teachings of love. And meditate on Radhakund and Govardhan as givers of the sight and love of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. So here in this verse, Magyantamidandasya Ganajana Salakaya Shakshilmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Rave Namaha Namo Vishnu Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pastyakti Desatari Panchakalpatu Krishna Vipa Sindhu Devasa Viknanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. I see Krishna, Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So after we say getting rid of, destroying all of the anarthas, now we're more in the proper development of consciousness where we can accept this type of meditation as being natural and more easier. And what is this verse saying? What is Raghunath Thakur saying? He's saying, concentrate, meditate, transform into a meditation your concentration. On who? On Krishna, who is the Lord of Radharani. There's a terminology called Radhanath, which means the Lord of Radharani. But then there's a problem with the Brijavasis, especially the Varsanabasis. They don't consider the name Radhanath to be the Lord of Radha. They consider the name Radhanath as Radha, who is Lord. So though if you know the mood of the internal, or we say the intimate associates of Radharani, they see Krishna, he's okay. We like him because Radharani likes him. But Radharani is our focus. And of course, that's Manjari Bab, those who are the assistants of Radharani, who are some of our key acharyas in the present sampradaya, and that is Rupa Goswami. He is the chief amongst the associates and servants of Radharani. He is Rupa Manjari. And then his assistant is Raghunath Das Goswami, who is actually Rati Manjari. And there are so many beautiful prayers, both by these two great intimate associates of Radharani in glorification of Srimati Radharani. So meditate on Krishna as the Lord of Radha. Meditate on, ready to meditate on Radha, who is very dear to Lord Krishna. Meditate on Lalita, who is her incomparable friend. So Lalita doesn't tolerate anything that may even slightly cause any disturbance to Sri Radharani. Even when Krishna causes disturbance to Radha, he gets chastised by Lalita. And she is fiery. Wow. If you know a little bit about Lalita, she goes right to the point. You rascal. She'll tell him straight. For instance, Radharani is waiting for Krishna. Krishna had promised to meet Radharani. And she's waiting, and he's not coming. And she's becoming more and more unhappy. Where is he? He's not coming. And then Lalita comes and she can see that Radharani's disturbed, and then she asks, and Radharani says, "Where's Krishna?" "I'll find him." So she goes, and she knows where he is. She goes to the opposing camp, which is Candramauli's place. There are right ring gopis and left ring gopis. The right ring gopis are what we say in line with Krishna. In other words, they're very obedient and loving to Krishna in the mood of surrendering to Krishna. The left wing gopis also surrender to Krishna, but they're also contrary. They get angry at Krishna. If he does something that they don't like, he gets some chastisement. But the thing is, this is not what we can see in the material world as some disturbance. This chastisement is another form of love. Because Krishna likes to get chastised by those who love him. Because he sees it as another form of love, which it actually is. So don't try to chastise Krishna unless you actually have true love for Krishna. So, Lalita finds him in the camp of Candramauli, and she says, "Oh, there you are. You have made my Priya, my mistress, my master, very angry." So then she runs, and Krishna realizes he's in trouble. So he's following behind, trying to make up for not being there. And then Radharani reaches the point, that's it. Doesn't matter if he comes anymore. He's going to get it. So now he's there, and he realizes, oh, he should have been there, of course. See, Krishna has a problem. God has a problem. Everybody loves him, and he likes to reciprocate everyone's love. So even the gopis, who are, there's so many gopis, and they all want to have loving relationships with Krishna. So he takes time out for that. And sometimes Radharani's okay with that. But when she makes an appointment with him and he's not there, ooh. So he's coming, and now she turns her back, doesn't want to look at him. He's trying to apologize and give some excuse she doesn't want to hear. So, and she walks away, and Lalita chastises him even further. Now Krishna's stuck. She goes home, she takes her bird cage, which is blue, reminds her of Krishna, she throws it. The Jamuna, she don't want to see that because it's also blue. Hare Krishna. This is love beyond. And she also has a blue sari, that's gone. And now Krishna doesn't know what to do. So he goes, he's thinking, what can I do? So then he says, oh, I'll go to Vrinda, because Vrinda, she's also the CEO in Vrindavan. She makes arrangements for Radha and Krishna's meetings. So he says to Vrinda, this is the situation. Get me back with Radharani. All right, I'll come up with a plan. So she says, well, Radharani is not happy now. And so you dress up as a lady. Now, Krishna is beautiful, so he can easily do that. And you go, and we'll introduce you as a fortune teller. And you come, and you present yourself, and then we'll announce that this lady has come to see what is Radharani's fortune, because we know she's not happy. Okay? So Radharani's with a small group of her associates. And Krishna is dressed up as this lady. Sorry, everything's there. Bindi, Mendi, it's all there. Hey, Krishna comes. And all the girls say, ooh, who's this new gopi? We've never seen her. She's very beautiful. And then, who are you? Well, I heard that Radharani's not happy, and I'm a fortune teller. So I'm going to give her her fortune, which will help her to get out of her unhappiness. Okay, everybody gets excited. Radharani's she's not so excited, but she thinks, all right. So he goes, and he knows how to read her feet, because you can also, the fortune people, they can read the lines on the feet, especially residents of Vrindavan. So he's holding her feet, and he says, yeah, I can see the problem. Oh, what is it? Well, you should forgive Krishna. Radharani looks around and says, where does this fortune teller come from? She has no knowledge. Get her out of here. So Krishna runs away in the form of this gopi, goes back to Vrinda and says, you have another plan? So she says, don't worry, we have many plans. She said, now you dress up as a sannyasi. So he gets it's a little different kind of dress. He looks more like Shiva than a sannyasi. He's got a drum, he's got some leopard skin. And he comes again, after some time, into the circle of the ladies, and Radharani is there. And the lady, oh wow, a sannyasi. Wow, let's get some blessing. So the sannyasi comes, Radharani thinks, oh yeah, I need some blessings. So, can you give us blessings? Oh yes, that's why I've come. Really? But I have to give blessings to Radharani first, because she needs it more than everyone. Radharani's blessing the whole world. So he goes and he says, yes, I can see the problem. The problem is she's missing Krishna. And then Radharani thinks, you can't refuse a sannyasi, that's an offense. Remember that. Scratch that from the recording. So, and then she accepts Krishna back. So, he takes Vrinda to do it, because Vrinda knows all the ins and outs of Radharani's love. So so we meditate on these pastimes of the Lord, which take us into the mood of Vrindavan more and more, and of the qualities and of the personalities that also illustrate these different qualities. In Rupa Goswami's Mukunda Muktavali Stava, he exemplifies this instruction. Describe and ask to picture in the mind Krishna along with his associates. Shri Radha is one of the dearest queens of Vrindavan, and that's illustrated by Raghunath Das Goswami as he writes his beautiful love expressions in the form of a treatise called Vilapa Kusumanjali. She is his master, and he serves her, and he begs for her mercy. She is the best of all lovers. Lalita, as the matchless, dear, close, and intimate friend of Srimati Radharani. And all of the acharyas, they give many, many glorifications of Lalita, especially her good quality of dancing. She's an expert dancer, and she likes to dance for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna. The gopis, they're the friends of Radharani, and the manjaris are more or less the intimate associates of Radharani. They have more time with Radharani and have access to Radharani than her friends, because she worships her friends as being, superior to her. But in order to accept the love and the service, she accepts it from the manjaris. So the acharyas explain in our sampradaya, we're aspiring for manjari bhav. That is the mood of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and that's the mood of Lord Chaitanya also. The manjaris, they're always absorbed in pleasing Srimati Radharani. They don't have much contact with Krishna unless Radharani tells them to do it. Otherwise, they are simply satisfied serving Srimati Radharani. Their whole focus in their devotion is simply focused on Srimati Radharani. When Lord Chaitanya was traveling in South India, he met one great personality named Ramananda Roy. And many of the associates of Lord Chaitanya actually appeared as many of the eternal residents of the spiritual world. Ramananda Roy was Vishaka. Swarup Damodar Goswami was actually Lalita. So you see, during the very end of Lord Chaitanya's Leelas, he was in 3 states of consciousness. One is called external consciousness, where he would perform his normal activities. The other one was internal consciousness, where he'd go deep into the mood of the residents of Vrindavan, because as we know, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha, Krishna, Nayanya. So in that mood, many times, he would go so deep that he was staying in one place called the Gambhira. You can go to that temple today, and there's a room where Lord Chaitanya stayed. But they had locked him in that room because he used to go mad in ecstasy. In order to prevent him from leaving, but he was so determined to leave, sometimes he would climb the wall in that room. It was like a wall, and he would go over the wall and just run towards Govardhan or something he thought was Govardhan. It's like one time we saw, was it Pantaka? It was a sand dune on the beach of Jagannath Puri, and he was running towards it thinking it was Govardhan Hill. When he got near it, he fell and went into unconsciousness. The devotees came and couldn't find him. Then they realized they had to look, and they looked everywhere, and they were searching. They followed Swarup Damodar, who's Lalita. because Lalita knows exactly where Lord Chaitanya is, because Lalita is in the mood of serving intimately Lord Chaitanya, who is also now in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So when they found him, they woke him up out of his situation. At first they couldn't wake him up because he was so deep in meditation. They all started to chant Hare Krishna. And then they start chanting it louder and louder and louder and louder. Finally the Lord broke his meditation. And he said, "Why did you bring me here?" And I was on the banks of the Jamuna, and I was with all of my friends, and Krishna was there, and we were about to bathe in the Jamuna, and now I'm here. And he got angry. He got angry. So that was his mood. His mood was to go deep into that, and so it was difficult. But the two persons who stayed with him through that whole time was Ramananda Roy, who was Vishaka, and Subdamata Goswami, who was Lalita. No one else would have that association with Lord Chaitanya when he went into those moods. And they would also sing the glories of Krishna, the glories of Vrindavan, the glories of the residents of Vrindavan, and the Lord would go into ecstasy. So this particular verse is really directing our attention to these personalities who are very dear to Krishna, who are residents in Vrindavan. And there's prayers. The acharyas give a whole series of prayers on each of these personalities to show how they are glorified in different ways. There's prayers for Lalita Astakam, and there's also prayers for Vishaka, who is considered Prem Guru. She is the personification of loving relationships in the mood of Vrindavan. So each of the intimate associates of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan have a particular service, and they perform that service in the mood of loving relationships. So this particular verse is just focusing on our attention on these personalities. Also in this verse, I think Radhakund is also mentioned. Radhakund sits at the base of Govardhan. There's Radhakund and Shamakund. Actually, to attain the state of consciousness where one qualifies to end the world, in that level is the highest state of consciousness. And that's given by Srila Rupa Goswami, especially in his Upadeshamrita. He glorifies Radhakund as the highest. How many have been to Radhakund? Wow, mostly everybody. I remember many years ago we were there, and His Holiness Sachinandana Maharaj we were doing parikrama and we met him at Radhakund. It was interesting. And he encouraged us to take, it was evening time, and he said we should all go bathe in Radhakund. So I had never done it before. But he spent about a half hour just preparing our consciousness in such a way that we would understand that it's not simply going into Radhakund. Because what happened earlier when Srila Prabhupada was here, Prabhupada also brought his disciples to Radhakund. And what they did, they jumped in and started splashing around like it was like some place to play. Prabhupada he was like Rani Kashi. No, he was like Nrsimhadev. He was so angry. He was so angry. And the devotees got the message. And then after that he said, nobody goes into Radhakund. But he did that just to make a point. But we can understand you can go into Radhakund. You take 3 drops, at least 3 drops of water on your head. You offer prayers to Radharani. You beg for Radharani's mercy. And those who know, don't touch Radharani with their feet first. Because to approach the supreme bathing place of Radharani with your feet is considered to be an offense. So one has to enter. Your feet will get in there, no doubt, but you don't go with your feet first, that's the whole thing. So we went that night and we stayed, and the water was very, very cold. But when you're in there, you don't think in terms of cold. And you just sit there and offer prayers to Radharani, and usually it's just individual prayers. Of course, Maharaja also instructed us on how we should pray and what is the mood. And you usually stay up to your neck and offer prayers. And you can experience something, some transformation in consciousness when you're there. It happens automatically. And we stayed in for about a half hour, maybe a little longer. Came out, and everyone was on a different level. So this is permissible and also encouraged that we go, especially during the time of Bahulasmi, which is the time when Radharani was created. It's a beautiful pastime that illustrates that time where it's a long pastime. Krishna was in Vrindavan, and Kamsa was sending so many demons into Vrindavan. One of them was a bull. His name was Arista. And this bull was huge. And his tail, when he hold it straight up, would touch the clouds. And he came charging into Vrindavan. And when his hooves were hitting the ground, it was causing miscarriages to anyone who had babies. And the whole ground was shaking. Krishna saw what was about to happen. He was with his friend. He was leaning on his shoulder. They were holding one flower. Krishna gave him the flowers. And then when he came, Krishna grabbed him by the horns and just tore them around and threw him. And Vishtasura got back up again and came charging even more angry. And then Krishna picked him by the horns, but this time he dusted him off with his lotus feet. For the devotees, the lotus feet of the Lord is so sweet and full of love, and it's just like the softest thing you can't imagine how soft his feet are. But when he's killing demons, that's like thunderbolts hitting the demon's head. So he's kicking this demon, and he lost his life. That night, Krishna was supposed to meet Radharani. Radharani said, "Not tonight." "Why?" "You killed a cow." "He was a demon." "Still, he was a cow." "So, you're supposed to be Gopal, huh?" So he got some chastisement. So he didn't. And then Krishna said to Radharani, "Well, now you're siding with a demon." So they were going back and forth. So Radharani says, "All right, but you have to purify yourself." "Well, how would I purify myself?" "What is that?" "Well, you have to go traveling to all the holy places and bathe there." Krishna said, "I'm not leaving Vrindavan." So in his mind, he called all the holy places, and with his feet he dug a hole, and then he asked the holy places. They all came in their personified form, and then he said, "Fill this area," and that became Shyamakund. And then he bathed, and then he said, "Now I'm purified, but you're still contaminated because you sided with a demon. So you have to bathe in my waters too." She said, "I'm not bathing in your waters. They're contaminated because you were..." So she said, "I'll make my own." So she called over her gopis, and they took off their bangles and started digging.
And they kept digging. And then Krishna allowed all the holy places to come into her home, and that filled, and that became Radhakund. And then that's Radhakund. So Radhakund and Shyamakund happened during that time. We celebrated in October, but actually it's not October. That's a mistake. That was actually brought out. It's in April. It's around this time. Yeah? Correct? Yeah. So, and of course, the celebration means people go from all the great souls and others come and bathe at midnight and at Radhakund. And that's very ceremonious to bathe at that particular time. So yeah, Radhakund and Shyamakund. And Govardhan, he's the bestower of sublime love to the divine couple, their lotus feet. Radhadas Goswami in his Govardhan Vasa Partana Dasakam, he glowered. So what is that mantra? Namaste Girirajaya Govardhanadari Namine Ashesha Klesha Dasaya Paramananda Daine. Yeah, so we chant that mantra, glorifying Shri Giridhari. Giridhari is Haridas Varya. That means he is the best of all devotees. Why? Because he provides cooling caves for Radha and Krishna to meet in, green grasses for the cows to eat, vegetables and various kinds of herbs that provide food for the residents of Vrindavan. And also there's ponds and other places where people bathe. So Govardhan is considered the best. Who is Govardhan? Before Krishna came to the material world, he, at least where it's explained in this way, that he wanted to, actually Govardhan is an expression of Krishna's love for Radha. So Govardhan is a manifestation of the heart of Krishna. That's why it says Govardhan is not different than Krishna, because it was his love. So he manifested that love in the form of this huge mountain, which was 60 miles high and sometimes 40 miles around. But then Govardhan was cursed. But the curse was actually a benediction, because Govardhan is an eternal associate of the spiritual world. So that curse was to reduce the size of Govardhan. Was it 1 mustard seed every day? Every day. And then Govardhan and Jamuna, you'll see they're gradually, you can't see it, but they're gradually disappearing from our vision. And that's part of the Leela, to bring them back to the spiritual world. Okay, so these are, and those who do the Govardhan Parikram, how many of you done Govardhan Parikram? Whoa, you've got so many wonderful Brijavasis. Yeah. This year, Radhanath Swami is doing his yatra in Govardhan. Starts on the 20th of October, he goes for a week. So if you are inclined, which you should be, please come for that Govardhan yatra. That'll be 7 days in the Govardhan area, which will include Parikram and other activities. So these are the places that are very dear to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Radharani, she gave the name to Govardhan as Haridasvaya. The Vedas say you, Govardhan, are the tilak decoration on the land of Braj. Like Radharani, Govardhan is the giver of sight and love for Srimati Radharani. That's why Raghunath Das Goswami wanted to leave the world in the area of Govardhan in his prayers and meditation. So, yeah. So I think these are some, there's a lot more. And it describes the identity of Raghunath Das Goswami as Rati Manjari. In his work, Vilapa Kusumanjali is famous in describing when Vaidhi Bhakti transmutes into Radha Bhakti, which is actually the goal of devotional service. As Lord Chaitanya says, devotional service that is imbued with rules and regulations don't attract me. And he's also teaching that mood. We talked about that as the essence of the discussion that centers around this particular presentation, the external activities of devotional service and the internal moods that they're meant to develop. Without developing the internal moods, the external will only reach a certain level. One has to go deeper into the external activities which help awaken the internal moods. What are those moods? The natural proclivities of the soul's love for the Lord. And that starts to awaken at a certain level of bhakti. Usually in the higher stages of bhakti, when the devotee comes to the stage that leads Ruchi. Adal Shara Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya Anartha Nirvritti Nishta Ruchi. In each of these stages have symptoms. So on the stage of Ruti, what is that? Prasanatma Nasoshatina. Brahmabhuta Prasanatma Nasoshatina Kongshati. Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Bhakti Lavate Baham. Mad Bhakti Lavate Baham. Which means that a devotee is always joyful. Always joyful. And Prabhupada used to say, if you're not happy, you're in Maya. I mean, right to the point. Well, I'm not happy. Become happy. How do I do that? Serve the devotees. That's how you do it. Serve those great, serve all devotees, but serve this mood, these devotees, by glorifying these residents in Vrindavan and make them the object of your meditation and prayers. Then you'll become happy. Okay, so there's a lot more here. But time is... So we can open it up for a little discussion on this particular subject matter, the meditation on, and the glorification, and the focus on these, mentions three, at least four, Govardhan, Lalita, Vishaka, Radharani, and also Krishna. Any comments or questions? I knew I wouldn't get too much for this one. Yes, Radha Dini.
I was really amazed by this class because this is so... Hare Krishna, so thank you very much. I was really amazed by this class because this is such a sweet topic. However, my difficulty is that I really think that I'm so far from this level that I'm not sure if I can properly understand it. And I was wondering that what should be the approach of what should be our approach for approaching Radha Krishna pastimes?
Going deeper into the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Perfecting your chanting. Freeing yourself from the offenses that we mentioned this morning to the holy name. The holy name will gradually bring one closer into this mood. And service to the Vaishnavas. We develop that mood, just like we had some devotees who took some time out just to cook for tonight for the devotees. They like to serve the devotees. So when you like to serve the devotees, that's a quality you want. Not just, oh, I should serve the devotees because they say it's a good idea and I get some benefit. No. Actually develop that mood. Because we can't get away from the mood of service. That's intrinsic in our existence. If we're not serving devotees or something in relationship to Krishna, we'll be serving something in relationship to the external energy. So focus your attention on devotees and also on the mood of devotion for these great personalities that were mentioned. You could chant these prayers. We have a whole, it's all mentioned here in this Lalita Astakam. 8 prayers in glorification of Sri Lalita. Yes. Yeah, I can read a few of them. I offer obeisances to Lalita Devi, who is extremely expert due to her excellent qualities. Out of her elevated and intimate feelings of love, she wipes away glistening drops of perspiration from the lotus feet of Radha Mukunda. I offer obeisances to Lalita Devi, who is extremely expert due to her excellent qualities. Her beautiful face defeats the brilliance of the rays of the full moon, and her eyes are ever restless like those of a startled doe. She is famous for an extraordinary proficiency in the art of dressing Radha, of whom she is an expert service. And that's just, I read 2 of the verses. There's 8 verses. We can chant these prayers, and we start developing the consciousness of that personality. And then we start going, because they are connected to Vrindavan, so they bring us into that mood of Vrindavan by glorifying them, speaking about them.
Can I just ask something connected to this? Because you mentioned the desire for serving the devotees, and I have one certain difficulty in it, that in some circumstances this desire comes forward, but for example when I'm not familiar with the place, with the situation, then because I'm not sure how I can manage, somehow this desire is not so much there. So for example, when I'm at home with devotees whom I know, it's much easier to develop this mentality. And how can this be? How can this manifest for every situation?
Devotees have different natures. Some devotees are more extroverted in their activities, and others are more introverted. You're more introverted. Extremely. But that's a good quality for bhakti. But in the association of devotees, there are different ways you can serve. Just like in a general sense, just like if you could just take up the mantle of serving prasadam during the times. That would be serving devotees. Or you could just speak to devotees and talk about something spiritual. Or just develop a relationship. And then, once you feel more comfortable, then Krishna will give you more and more ideas.
Thank you very much. This is really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Do you have a question? Yeah, so.
I just, you said during Govardhan Parigram, and then you stopped. I didn't say what you... you said something about doing Govardhan Parigram, but I didn't get what you said after that.
What did I say after Govardhan?
The benefit of it. I think you were about to say it, but then something else happened.
You can ask the devotees who do it. So I don't remember if there was anything that I was supposed to say after that. I mentioned that Radhanath Swami is having a yatra on Govardhan this year. So I encourage the devotees to come if they could. That means you have to register, but yeah. Lord Chaitanya encourages devotees to go to holy places. In fact, it's mentioned, now you might think this is a little extreme, but it says all the devotees who are followers of Lord Chaitanya should visit every holy place that he went. Now, is that possible? He traveled throughout South India and went to hundreds of places. Vishnu temples, Vishnu temples, places of Lord Shiva, and his footprints are even placed in 29 different places around India, places he went. And also he went to places in Bangladesh also. So going to holy places is actually the activities of a serious Vaishnava. We should take time to go to these holy places. Not that, we read about them and we hear about them. That's nice. That's also recommended. And going there, there's an experience. And you get purified. Holy places are meant for purification, for transcendental knowledge, for Krishna conscious association. Anyone else? Did you have a question? Yeah, okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I really like the point about these two camps and that we should aspire about Manjari Bhav, right? So if
it's not as easy as you mentioned it.
yeah. But I just want to ask something.
There's a whole... Once you qualify yourself to move into running the bhakti, first you have to qualify to get to there. Once you get there, then there's a whole sadhana that comes with that attainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question. I just wanted to ask. Yeah, because sometimes, especially in Slovenia, but when we have a Holy Name festival, and then we sing mantra, but then some devotee likes to also, after 3 hours, sing Radharani's name to also, so that's being chastised. So is it because we don't know about the philosophy,
we
or
can
because
say
of
we can chant Radharani's name once or twice, but Prabhupada shut it down every time. He said, those who understand a little bit about Radharani don't really, just like we have the example of Sukadeva Goswami when he was narrating Bhagavatam, he doesn't even mention their name, although he is an intimate associate of Radharani. The reason why, there was 2 reasons why he didn't mention her name. One is because of his deep love for Radha, and therefore he wouldn't be able to recite. He would go into ecstasy just thinking of her name. And the other reason was there were so many sages and tapasis and other various personalities who came to see, Maharaj Pariksit. But he could understand they weren't qualified to even hear her name. But Radharani, nobody can understand. Even Krishna's having a hard time. I don't want to get into the intimate act, but basically, her love is not known to anybody, not even Krishna. He becomes Lord Chaitanya just to find out what it's like. Sometimes we sing some bhajans, Radharani ki jai, Maharani ki jai. Sanabhava ki jai jai jai. But we don't really make kirtans out of Radharani's name. Is that the Vaikuntha police?
What is it? Fire alarm? It's not fire. It's not
The
fire.
fire bhakti, yeah? Burning all the ignorance. So yeah, there was one time that I know for sure, this was here in France, and Prabhupada was here in one kirtan year, he was quite good. He started going into Radha kirtan. Prabhupada immediately said we're stopping.
5 minutes and then it's finished.
Guru Maharaj, thank you again for this particular session. My question is about Manjari Bhav. Till now I had always heard only about Gopi Bhav. This is the very first time I'm hearing about Manjari Bhav, and that we are encouraged to cultivate this mood of Manjari Bhav. So where can we read more about this?
It comes from the writing of the Goswami, especially Rupa Goswami. And also Raghunath Das Goswami, who are both in that same mood. All of our acharyas, Kamala Manjari is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Who else? Bhakti Siddhartha is Nayanamandi. Yeah, you see. Mostly all of our acharyas are in the mood of these manjaris.
Thank you.
It's not that, I didn't say you have to cultivate that, but once one qualifies themselves to move into the stage of Raghunath Bhakti, there's a whole sadhana that comes with that, and that's part of it also. And that's illustrated by Shivaram Maharaj in his book, where he says, further information regarding spontaneous devotional service. He's been focusing, because sometimes people think that anyone who goes in that direction is sahaja, pretense. But actually it's Lord Chaitanya's desire that everyone comes, because ultimately you can't come to the stage of prema unless you come to the mood of spontaneous attraction for Krishna. And there's a way to awaken that once it starts to develop at a seedling stage. But there are people today who claim to be sadhus who teach that, but they don't even discriminate who they teach it to. And that's the fallacy of the whole thing. People have to be qualified to be able to move into that. And that qualification comes by your spiritual master. Okay, how are we doing on time? Okay, so we have a little break, and then we'll go back and do the next verse, which is, again, in the mood of Vrindavan. Okay, thank you. And we take this 5-minute break.
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. Don't get lost.
Zašto si upalio alarm? Posle sad počeo mati putovati. Sreće lica jela. Prešao mi tebe, gasi. Puštaj diskalice.
Dedicated, That
So we'll begin the next verse. We'll go right into the verse number 10. We'll chant the verse. So right now, Raghunath Das Goswami is going deeper and deeper into this mood of bhakti. So remember, we're following Raghunath Das Goswami's mood of devotion, but he's also inviting us into that same mood. At least we can get a glimpse of it to see what it is and how it's attainable. So verse number 10. Okay? Ratim Gulalila Api Tapati Sundare Kiranai. Ratim Gulalila Api Tapati Sundara Kiranai. Sachi Lakshmi Satya Paribhavati Sabhagya Valanai. Sachi Lakshmi Satya Vasikaras Candramauli Mukam Navina Rajastha Sati. Vasikaras Candramauli Mukam Navina Rajastha Shivata Aras Yatam Haridaitya Radam Bhajan Manaha. Shivata Aras Yatam Haridaitya Radam Bhajan Manaha. Translation: O mind, offer your worship unto Sri Radhika, the beloved of Lord Hari. Shines Rati, the wife of Kamanadev, Gauri, the wife of Lord Shiva, and Leela, the potency of Lord Vishnu. By the effulgence of her beauty, she defeats Sachi, the wife of Indra, Lakshmi, and Satya, Krishna's wife, by the waves of her good fortune. She defeats the pride of the newly married gopis of Raj, headed by Candramauli, through her power to control Krishna. This one is all about Radharani. Okay. Bhajamana. Bhajamana, Radhe, Radhe. How's that go? Bhajamana, Radhe, 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 Govinda. Next chant. Bhajamana, offer worship. O mind, tam unto her, Haridaita Radam, Shivara, the beloved of Lord Hari, Tapati, who blazes, Ratim, Rati, the wife of Kamadev, Gauri Lile Api, as well as Gauri, the wife of Lord Shiva, and Leela, the potency of Lord Vishnu, Sadarya Kiranai, by the effulgence of her beauty, Paribhavati, who defeats Sachi Lakshmi Satya, Sachi, the wife of Indra, Lakshmi and Satya, Krishna's wife, Sabhagya, Valanai, by the ways of her good fortune, Ya, Shivu, Arat, immediately, Shupati, defeats, Navina Raja Sati, the newly married gopis of Raj, Candramauli Mukha, headed by Candramauli, Vasikarai, through her power to control Krishna. Okay, so this whole verse is simply a glorification of Srimati Radharani. O mind, offer your worship unto Sri Radhika, the beloved of Hari. She outshines Rati, the wife of Kamadev, Gauri, the wife of Lord Shiva, and Leela, the potency of Lord Vishnu, by the effulgence of her beauty. She defeats Sachi, the wife of Indra, Lakshmi, and Satya, Krishna's wife, by the ways of her good fortune. She defeats the pride of the newly married gopis, gopis of Braj, headed by Candramauli, through her power to control Krishna. Now this whole verse is simply a glorification of the qualities of Radharani. It's also mentioned there are 25 qualities, but this is just a synopsis. She has unlimited qualities. These 25 are mentioned in the Shastras, especially in Chaitanya Charitamrita. They're also mentioned. Before we can actually approach Krishna, we have to approach Krishna through his energy. So the energy leads to the source of energy. And the energy is the internal energy, Radharani. She's Bhakti Devi. When we chant the pranams, we also say Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. She is Bhakti Devi, the source of Bhakti. It is mentioned she is the composite of all Bhakti. Any Bhakti that the living entity has in their heart is just a drop of the Bhakti in her heart. And when we get her favor, which we are meant to get, then we can actually get Krishna's favor. Without getting her favor, it becomes quite difficult and practically impossible to get Krishna's favor. So, and Krishna has his favorites, just like in this world we have our favorites. So Krishna's favorites are the gopis who have the most love for him and are expert at offering that love in varieties of ways. And the two most superior gopis are Radharani and Candramauli. As we mentioned, Candramauli has her own group of right-wing gopis who are very passive and very obedient to Krishna. And then Radharani, she more or less leads another group of gopis. There are unlimited gopis and there are groups within the groups within the groups. If you read Ujjvala Nilamani and other works by Rupa Goswami, they give more details of the intricacies of the residents of Vrindavan, how it's so variegated. It'll make the variety in this world look like something monolithic. So there is so much variety. So within the groups, there are groups and more groups. And each one has their service and relationship to Radha and Krishna. And Sri Rupa Goswami's Ujjvala Nilamani, he writes of her 25 qualities. Her bathing place, Radhakund, is very dear to him. She's the most beloved of all the gopis. When we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, we understand that Krishna's name is mentioned But prior to Krishna's name is the internal name, or Radharani. So sometimes we think in terms of the Mahamantra, what does Hare mean? But it really refers to the internal energy. But for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that specifically refers to Srimati Radharani. So there are many who understand that the whole mantra is actually a worship of Krishna in Vrindavan along with his internal energy, Radharani. So it's Hare, Radha Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radha Radha, Radha Raman, Radha Raman, Raman Raman, Radha Radha. Don't chant that. But it's there. But those who have Aishwarya Bhav, they see the name Hare as being Sita or a energy of the Lord, because Radharani expands. She is the source of all female personalities in all of the different categories, which means the Lakshmis, the Gopis of Vrindavan, the Lakshmis of Vaikuntha, and the queens of Vrindavan. So she expands into because her service to Krishna is not limited to herself. She wants to provide, Krishna has an unlimited desire to enjoy. Where do we get this desire to enjoy? From Krishna. We relegate our enjoyment thinking that we can enjoy this way or that way. But actually the nature of enjoyment is the nature of the soul. To always be in the mood of enjoying is the nature of the soul. To always be happy, to always be experiencing transcendental happiness, not in one way or another, but in varieties of ways, so many different ways. So this world, we see there is so much variegatedness in individuals and activities and places, and variegatedness is actually, they say variety is they call it the spice of life. Without variety, life becomes unlivable. And it's also a feature of enjoyment, because as we experience variety, variety creates enjoyment just by being in something that is new, something that is different. But when it's done in the spiritual realm, everything is always in the mood of, what we say, pure love. Not something that is contaminated by personal interests. Personal interests are not there in the spiritual world. The interest is the object of devotion. What does that mean? That whoever you're serving, you're only thinking how to give that personality pleasure, that's all. You don't care even if it causes you inconvenience. There's a story where Radharani will see that Krishna has a strong desire to be with this particular gopi. But Radharani knows that gopi is not so developed in the art of love as she is, and therefore she wants Krishna to have the best. So she'll go and she'll talk to that gopi and teach that gopi some intricacies about Krishna which will help that gopi enjoy with Krishna and give Krishna greater pleasure. So in that sense, she puts herself in a lesser position just to give Krishna pleasure. So that's her. But sometimes, as we mentioned, she wants Krishna for herself. Hare Krishna. But that's not selfish, because Krishna, it says no one, as it says in this verse, no one can compare to Radharani's love for Krishna. Therefore Krishna always prefers Radharani. But still he reciprocates with others, because that is his. You might say, almost like a duty. If someone loves you, it's natural you want to reciprocate with them. So that comes from Krishna also. Yeah. And being absorbed in that, that's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, What is the meditation of a devotee? Manmana bhava madbhakto, mamiji mam namaskuru. Yeah. 2 verses, it's not mentioned once, it's mentioned in 2 different chapters in the Bhagavad Gita. The same 2 lines at the beginning. Always think of me, Krishna says. Become my devotee, that means perform spiritual activities. Worship me, find different ways to glorify, and also offer your obeisances. These are the 4 key activities of the Vaishnavas. And each one has varieties within it, such as worship. We can worship in so many different ways. But the focus is always on the divine couple, like that. So as we mentioned, we're looking at the deities, we're seeing beautiful Radha and Krishna on the altar, and we're getting charmed. But how do we approach them? They are not approachable in the mood of Vrindavan until we have attained that consciousness of Vrindavan. So they are approachable in the mood of Vaikuntha, which is awe and reverence. Prabhupada said, don't try to jump on the back of the deity. But in the spiritual world, Krishna's friends do that. They jump on his back. They also take away his lunch. They say, you're not so important. But they also play, they play with Krishna in different ways. And the gopis also do that. Sometimes they call Krishna different names that are kind of like, let's say, you're always hanging around with your buffoon friends and talking all nonsense. That means the cowherd boys. The cowherd boys talk a lot of nonsense. And they joke, and they run, they play games. And they do all kinds, they invent new games also. Let's mention, every day they come up with a new game to play. And they get more time with Krishna than the gopis, so the gopis get a little bit upset about that. Because Krishna's out there with the cows, and when he's with the cows, he's with the cowboys. But they get their time, but selected. Okay. So becoming a devotee of Radha and Krishna means becoming a devotee of Lord Chaitanya. You cannot approach Radha and Krishna, especially in this age, without the mercy and the worship of Lord Chaitanya. And we see Lord Chaitanya is there in all of our worship. Because Lord Chaitanya is teaching the mood of Vrindavan through his activities. And the mood of Vrindavan is actually the glorification of Krishna in the form of holy name. Golokera, Premadan, Harinam, Sankirtan, Ratim Jan, Milo Kimi Upai. So that is the mood of Vrindavan, which is being taught by Lord Chaitanya. Hare Krishna. Not just japa, not just kirtan. Kirtan kind of takes us up really fast into the transcendental mood and gives great happiness. Because it's sung and it's done with so many living entities glorifying simultaneously. But japa is also necessary in order to really stay fixed in Krishna consciousness. It's also an instruction, obviously. But it also allows us to really go deeper into the kirtan. So our japa, at least the quality of it, when it's done with a proper mood, what is that mood? That I'm approaching the Supreme Lord in his internal energy. And what am I doing? I'm simply chanting their names. But these names are not material names. They're actually way beyond it, and they have no material qualities. And the indication is that those who chant, they give up material activities. They find material activities simply boring or a waste of time. So the holy name reigns supreme within even the great souls. Even though they have different moods of devotion, they always chant Hare Krishna. Because that is the purification in this age. And this is the best way to worship the Lord. Harinam. Harinam, 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 Eva Kevalam. There's so many ways to worship the Lord, but if you're chanting and you don't do any other worship, then all of the benefits of all other worship come along with the chanting. We do other forms of worship as support for our chanting, but as we develop our chanting, our life is like a pyramid. What does that mean? That when you start with your devotional service, you're taking on whatever comes. You're doing so many varieties of activities. So it's broad. But as you continue in your Krishna consciousness, you start to streamline and you become more focused on something that is more, in line with your spiritual development, something you've developed a taste for. And it's usually centered around the chanting of the holy name. For some people it may just be a particular service, like they get absorbed in deity worship, and that's all they do. Or others may simply get absorbed in distributing books, and that's all they do. That's their focus. Although there's so many other services, they focus on what they are experiencing the most in terms of their own spiritual development, and it's also supported by the instructions given by the spiritual teachers. Like that. So, and at one point, when you get to the pyramid top, you're focused on Radha Krishna and Vrindavan, and there's nothing else. And then you achieve it. But that's Lord Chaitanya's mission, to bring us closer and closer to that mood of Vrindavan. It says we should live in Vrindavan, but then we might say, well, is that practical? Not for some people, it's not. Therefore, living in Vrindavan also means to live in Vrindavan consciousness. Even if you're not able to, you should try to develop that consciousness, which is the mood of Vrindavan. What does that mean, mood of Vrindavan? That one serves the Supreme Lord without any personal motivation. One doesn't even want to go back to the spiritual world. Right? Mukunda? There you go. I was just remembering your test. What do you want out of the four? You want to go back to Godhead? Stay there? You want to stay in New Mayapur forever? So yeah, one of the moves is that we want to focus our attention in a particular way. So we may serve in a certain way like that. But it's always accompanied. I remember, as it says in the Shastras, that you can become perfect by developing perfection in one of the 9 processes of bhakti. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam, the 9 processes. So the scriptures say, if you can perfect one, then you can perfect your Krishna consciousness, your devotional service. But is that true? No response. It is, but there is a clause. The clause is Lord Chaitanya. What is that clause? that he's come to give us that activity which will bring perfection in all of the other 8 forms, chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So, therefore it's mentioned, and there was an incident that I experienced. This was in Germany. This was in Golokadam. This was many years ago when I was going there. And I had met the temple president, a very nice devotee. He's no longer on the planet. And he called me in. He says, Maharaj, you know, I got this Pujari, and she comes every day on time. She does wonderful service. Rishi Radha Madan Mohan, she's always creative how to do so many things. And she's the best Pujari I've ever had. But she won't chant. She won't change up. And she tells me that you can become perfect in one of it, so I'm doing Arjuna. That's my focus. But and then he was explaining to her, but she wouldn't listen. She was saying, this is what it says. So he asked me, what should I do? He wanted some advice. So I just told her, continue to allow her to come and occasionally remind her that Lord Chaitanya came to teach us the chanting of the holy name. And it's also mentioned in the Bhagavatam by Srila Prabhupada in his purports, 7th canto, 5th chapter, verses 23 and 24. In those 2 verses, 22 and 23, he mentions the 9 processes, but he says each of the 8 must be accompanied by the chanting of the holy name. That is the Yuga Dharma in this age. It's not this, we say expendable. One has to chant. So, he tried his best, but she wouldn't change. And I told him, I said, if she doesn't change, she's not going to last. Because Krishna will kick her out. She's trying to serve the Lord without serving the instructions of the spiritual master. You can't do that. You can't jump over to the Lord and think, well, I know more than my spiritual master, or at least I have a different opinion. Therefore, I can serve the Lord. No. Krishna will never accept that, because his representatives is the way to his lotus feet, service to them. So I said she's not going to last, and I left. And I came back a few months later, and I asked about her. He said, she's gone. I didn't throw her out. She left all by herself. She just one day stopped her service. And so obviously. So that was an example of how important it is that we couple all of our activities with the chanting of the holy name. That's primary. And there's those who perfect their lives through chanting, and then that becomes their focus. Okay. Raghunath Das Goswami. He used to perform 2,000 every day obeisances to the Lord. 1,000 obeisances to the devotees, 1,000 obeisances to the Lord every day. Like that. So what does that say? We have to perform some austerity. That means giving up certain activities which take away our devotional service. Recommended restrictions. So just like we had the initiation ceremony. So no illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating, no gambling. So these are called austerities. Being in New Mayapur, I found another austerity. It's called going up the stairs. So I call that austerity. That's my austerity. Anyways, I'm going up to the stairs, I'm remembering what is austerity. So anyway, that's another story. So the point is, these restrictions help us to disentangle ourselves from any activity which will be contrary to our spiritual life. So these are sinful activities, they must be stopped. And these are the things that people in the material world find pleasure in. And therefore you can see, simply by the results, how the world is going to hell. Because people have no regards to what is right or wrong in terms of what they like and don't like. It's what I like and what I don't like becomes my standard of morality. It's been redefined. But these things are foundational. Sometimes people ask, where is it mentioned in the scriptures? Prabhupada does mention. He mentions one particular scripture in one lecture. They're not found so often, but they are there. But these are the foundations by which all sinful activities are built upon, these four. So if you can follow these four, you can be free from all sinful activities. So that austerity is necessary in order for us to approach the holy name like that. Radharani gives strength to Krishna. Does Krishna need strength? He's the source of strength. But there's another type of element which is called the strength of love. So he's perfect in all. But it's mentioned that Radharani is together with Krishna, and then Krishna looks at Radha and he sees how beautiful she is, and then he becomes happy seeing her beauty. She turns to him and seeing that Krishna now has become more happy, and then he's become more beautiful because he's become more happy, and then she sees his increased beauty, she becomes happy, and then she becomes more beautiful. Because the more happy you are, even if you're ugly, if you're happy, it's not so bad. Nobody will notice your ugliness. Does that make sense? Because happiness is really the expression of the soul's coming out in the form of the facial expression. So that's from the Candramauli Samhita. Something I haven't written yet. Anyway, so the point is, as it continues to go in that mood, and Radharani's happiness increases Krishna's happiness, and then beauty increases as happiness increases. And in connection with the divine couple, there's no limit. Because everything on the spiritual platform is unlimited. Try that with your wife. See how many times you can do that. See, you may go one or two times, but in the spiritual world, with Radha and Krishna, their happiness and their beauty, Krishna is so beautiful that he astounds himself with his own beauty. Yeah. One day he was walking in Dwarka and he passed this pillar. The pillar had a reflecting surface. And then he passed and he said, wow, who is that beautiful person? And then he went back to look and he said, that's me. Sometimes we try that. I can't wait to give darshan now. So it's not like that. So, but with Radha and Krishna, therefore, when it says that Radharani gives strength to Krishna, it's not a euphemism or some, idea. It's actually, she gives him so much transcendental happiness that he becomes, all he does is thinks about Radharani. Becomes absorbed in Radharani. She is the source of everything. We pray to Radharani, please Radharani, tell him you're very close to Krishna, therefore please put in a good word for me. We can say that. Yeah? We can say it in a very prayerful way. ask Radharani for her mercy so he can get Krishna's favor. For us, Radharani is our guru, and for us, Krishna is our source of love. But also for the Manjaris, she's also both. It's for both. But on this level of practice, she's our prem guru. She teaches the process of loving Krishna. And because she has pure love for Krishna, if she wants to give some mercy to anyone, and she's very kind. Prabhupada tried to illustrate her kindness by saying that on Janmashtami we fast all the way up to midnight. On Radhashtami we fast half day. So who's more kinder? And then he went on to say, mother is always more kinder than father. So yeah, Radharani is very kind to the devotees. And a little bit of effort in that direction you can gain her favor. Her love is very confidential. We don't speak about it in a more detailed way. We just mention it as being the best of all. It's very confidential. It says there are 360 categories of love in the spiritual world. That's coming from Srila Rupa Goswami, who is our Acharya to teach us the process of pure devotional service. Okay, this is a little bit about Srimati Radharani. So much more is there in her glorification. And on her appearance day, we take some time and focus completely on her, and glorifying her and remembering her like that. She is the best of all of Krishna's associates. Okay, any questions about Srimati Radharani? Yes.
I just wanted to mention something, that today is, according to our calendar, it's appearance day of Radha Kund.
Today?
Yeah, according to our calendar, it's appearance day of Radha Kund. So interesting.
Thank you for that. Yeah, wow.
Today?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, Balarama Sayatra, so
It is in April. We know that.
Yeah.
So today is the actual day. That means the day of Bahulashtami also. Yeah. So we may not be able to go to Radha Kund. We can bathe in the Kund in the mind. There is Manasi Bhakti, focusing your mind on the activities of devotional service and become absorbed in that. And then you can actually enter into that same activity in the mind. Because actually everything starts in the mind. Whatever the body is doing is inspired by the mind, so we can focus. Today we can think about and absorb ourselves from Radha Kund. And we can also experience, and when that meditation becomes consistent, some of the mercy coming from that meditation, or that Kund. Yeah. Yes, please.
It's not directly related to Radharani, but it's a more general question.
Okay.
Thank you, wonderful class, Maharaj. So my question is, in regards to the Swarup, the eternal identity of the soul, is it the right understanding that that is fixed when we discover it, or is that something that comes by our aspiration to be in a particular rasa?
It is fixed, but if you aspire in a certain way, then even if that's not your particular fixed rasa, that aspiration, when it's done according to the principles of Raganuga Sadhana, because one of the principles of Raganuga Sadhana is to is to focus on an eternal resident of Vrindavan, hear about that resident, glorify that resident, learn the mood of that resident, and if that is not your eternal swarup, then that resident will guide you towards. That's how it's explained. But that's also part of the sadhana, is to focus on eternal resident.
Thank you. Thank you, Mahesh.
Yeah. Yes, John. You turn that thing off until you get it there. Sounds like Indra's trying to get it. Maybe he wants to come and be part of the class. Okay, now you gotta turn it back on again.
Hold it down.
Hold it up.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Thanks for the wonderful class. Is there a point at which we can expect to be achieving that type of elevated consciousness? Is there signs that we can look out for?
As you move into that, yeah, you start losing your attraction to the material world. I have many people that have come and said, since I've been practicing devotional service, the things that I used to do are losing, I don't have any taste for them anymore. I still have to do them because they're my obligations, but there's nothing to them anymore. People in the material world, they put all of their attention on whatever they do to get some kind of pleasure, some success out of that. But as you move into Krishna consciousness, you start doing those activities simply as a duty, and not so much as an object of enjoyment or a success. So that's a good indication. The second thing is you're starting to develop those qualities that are mentioned as being the qualities of a Vaishnava. In the Bhagavatam, it mentions there are 26 qualities of a Vaishnava. So you can do a little check and see, how much you're developing those qualities. And the more you're developing that, that's an indication you are making nice advancement. These two things. Rishab, you have a question? Is that okay, John?
Yeah, that's perfect, thank you.
Okay. You're too close to the speaker.
Come away.
You have to get away from the speaker.
Yeah, that speaker, turn it around and go down a bit. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. I have two short questions. One is, we say that in Brahma Buddha stage we are joyful, but our line is in the mood of separation, loving separation. So how to, have a comment how to, we are joyfully sad all the time.
Why wouldn't separation be joyful? It's part of bhakti also. It's called vipralambha. It's expression of happiness in the mood of longing. But that again, these are on the spontaneous devotional service. But chat and be happy. The happiness is the constitutional nature of the living entity. It's not foreign. Why is everyone trying to be happy? Because it's natural. Why is everyone trying to live long and not die? Because it's natural. These are the things that are natural. So love takes different moods. So the mood of separation is another element of love. And love, that kind of love inspires the mind to hanker for the beloved, which is another form of happiness. Just like it says Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, but then he does leave. But does he really leave? What it means is he stays in the hearts of the devotees, and they're feeling him simply by remembering him. And in that remembrance, they're longing for his meeting, but at the same time they're experiencing a type of transcendental happiness simply by remembering him, which is mixed with the longing to be with him. So it's kind of like a mixed happiness. That's another kind of happiness. The happiness of wanting to be with the lover. But the whole thing is that they're focused on Krishna, therefore it's always transcendental, it's always happy.
One more thing about we can approach it.
Push it down.
Hold it down.
Hold it down, hold it down.
So we approach the deities in the Vaikuntha mood on the sadhaka level, but you said that in higher levels you approach the deities on the Braj mood. So how does that look like, Maharaja?
That looks like your consciousness, not How does it look like? You see this is Radha and Krishna, and you experience them in that way. It's a matter of consciousness, that's all. It's not, you can't define it in terms of words. How some people see another person and they see it in a certain way, that person, and another person will see the same person and see another way. So it's consciousness. Consciousness is the reality of life. So when the consciousness becomes more and more pure, that means the contaminating the coverings of the material energy, which we heard about in previous discussions, are being wiped away. And you see Krishna as he is.
Externally it's the same activities, yes. Externally it's the same activities externally.
The activity doesn't really matter, it's the consciousness. But the activity is worship, devotion. It's always there. Okay, we have any more questions? Yes, Kiran.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you Guru Maharaj, a wonderful class. I think yesterday you mentioned there are two types of gurus, right? Types in the sense either Lord Nityananda or Srimati Radharani, right? Two different moods. If you're in the mood of Lord Nityananda, I think you mentioned you try to exemplify your behavior. Are you still serving a resident of Vrindavan if you are in that mood?
If you're in the mood of?
Lord Nityananda.
Lord Nityananda is, he's Balaram, Goloka, Shri Krishna Chaitanya no, that's not it. Prajender Nandanaye, Sachi Sutta Holy say, Balaram Holy Natai. So he's Balaram, he's also in the mood of Vrindavan. He's one of the Calvary boys. But these same two personalities appear now as in Gaur-Nitai. But what are they teaching? Vrindavan.
So with the Bhava, you mentioned the Manjari Bhava, Gopi Bhava, that's not there, right?
That's Prem Guru, that's Radharani, but that comes through your own Guru when you are ready. You can't jump to that level. When you actually went through the different stages and have reached a certain level of bhakti, then the heart starts to long more and more for the mood of Vrindavan, for Krishna, for the residents of Vrindavan. That's been described here. Yeah. But just follow the process.
So it's a gradual elevation of the...
Generally it's gradual. For some it's more gradual than others. but it's generally gradual. It depends on the enthusiasm of our bhakti. If we can develop lauyam, which is greed for Krishna, you see greedy people who are greedy for something in the material world, they're focused on that. Because that's all they want. So we can apply that principle of greed, which is transcendental, which means hankering for Krishna, hankering for service. You should hanker for service. That's also the Vrindavan, to serve.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. I'm going to call my lawyer now. Okay, our next question there is, which question am I going to get?
I'm just trying to load it from here, but I think I'm basically just reiterating the point you just made, and I think it answers my question I asked you earlier with the 4 options. So, and I think you gave me this answer. I've asked you this question before, and you actually gave me the answer once when we were.
So this is for everyone else.
Yeah. But it's actually what you just literally just said now. I'm just repeating that. So you had actually quoted the exact verse and lecture that Prabhupada had actually said this. And basically Prabhupada quotes Narottam Das Thakur. And when he's in this song by Narottam Das Thakur, and it goes, "My dear Lord, let me be engaged in your transcendental loving service as indicated by the previous acharyas, and let me live in the association of pure devotees. That is my desire life after life." In other words, a devotee does not care much whether or not he is liberated. He is only eager for devotional service.
So, yeah, so we heard from Bhuta Bhavana, when he was quoting that liberation is like a tigress that devours one's bhakti. Sometimes we pray to the Lord, "My dear Lord, I'm suffering in this material world. So help me get free from my suffering." You're asking for liberation in the form of asking in that way. When you ask for service, then you're asking for bhakti. Or something about serving. It's all about service. But when you're asking for relief from material sufferings, you're really praying for liberation. But if you say, "My dear Lord, I'm suffering in this material world because I have no attraction for you. Please inspire me and give me more and more attraction to yourself." We can actually pray to Krishna to become more attracted to him. We can do that, and he will help you also. He'll answer that prayer. Okay, how are we doing on time? 8 more minutes? Okay. So anyone else? Oh yes, Sri Devi.
Guru Maharaj, thank you again for this very nice presentation. As you were speaking about reflecting more and more on the residents of Vrindavan, the land of Vrindavan, the devotees on this planet, and as we have been told to do, I was wondering how we can really be grave and go deep into that mood rather than taking it, cheaply like Sahajiya. Oh, today I was thinking of Radharani and the Gopis. I was thinking of the Sakhis, and they dressed like this and they did like that. Can be so easy to get into that kind of mood if we are superficial about it. So I was wondering how we can get into that deep mood of love and devotion and then think of the residents of Vrindavan.
Chant these prayers that are being offered by the acharyas that bring us into that mood. These prayers open up a deeper contemplation on, when you hear the details of the qualities and the activities and the, what we say, characteristics of these great souls, it helps us to go deeper into that mood. That's what Raghunath Das Swami is asking us to do. He's not just saying, go to Vrindavan. He gives very specific. The residents, the cows, Sri Damar, Raghunath Das, Rupa Goswami. But now he's up to Radharani. So he's taking us through different focuses that will bring us into the mood of Vrindavan. But he ends with Radharani, which is the pinnacle of all of the focuses. So offering prayers and reading the prayers of the acharyas will help bring about that mood. And thinking about what you read also. Don't just read it and then think, I read it, just think about what you're reading also. Yes, Leela.
Regarding the explanation that you gave about, the devotee who was serving the deities lost interest in chanting the holy name, is it due to offenses to the deities or the devotees that people lose interest in chanting the holy name? And is there a way to revive it?
It can be one of the reasons why we lose taste for the chanting. Because Krishna's holy name is Krishna. If you're offending his devotees, you think he's going to give you the mercy? That's the fastest way to lose mercy, is to offend Vaishnavas. So, devotees are dear to Krishna. Very dear to Krishna. Even Krishna says the devotees are more dear to me than I am to myself. To become a devotee, when someone said to Prabhupada, you are the best devotee. Prabhupada said, oh, devotee, that's very high. He was saying, we use the word quite loosely, but to become a devotee is not just, chanting Hare Krishna and being in, we have to come to the point of surrender, and you're a devotee. Yeah. So that's one of the ways to lose the attraction for chanting is with this offenses, And if you're chanting the holy name with offense, I meet people who were chanting for so many years but gave up chanting, saying, I'm not getting any taste from it, so why should I chant? I've been trying to get a taste, but no taste comes. But Prabhupada says, even if there's no taste, keep chanting, but at the same time, go introspective and try to see what is blocking your progress in spiritual life. And Rupa Goswami gives you the list. Atyahara, Prajalpa, Samadhi, Magraha, Prayasa, Lauyam, Janasanga. He tells you these six categories are the main reasons why your bhakti goes down. And then he shows you in the next verse 6 things that make your bhakti go up. You'll see that in the Shastras. Shastras always start off telling you what you shouldn't be doing. And then when you understand that, then they give you, what you should be doing. Or how you should be doing what you're doing. Yeah. Like that. Yes, Vrindavan.
Maharaj, my question is related to what Prabhu
asked earlier, we have discussed this 2 times. Although we have discussed this, but I still have this question in somewhere in my heart, Maharaja, that this Radharani name, like even while we are chanting, as you said that Hare refers to internal energy of Radharani. It's just a synonyms of Radha name. Right? So we consider Radharani as our eternal mother. And Prabhupada mentioned like many things in conflicting way because of time, places and circumstances.
Right.
Like even Radha Kund Islam, he mentioned because people were jumping, taking wrong impression of Radha Kund. That's why he stopped.
Right.
It's not that in other lecture he said that yes, please take because she's our mother. We should.
Right. Yeah. So
why
that was
like,
determined. That was time and circumstance.
Yeah. So while we can call out Radharani name in our chanting, why we cannot call like just as a Radha? Like what's the difference? Like if somebody is calling her in a different wrong mood as a cheap thing, then it's wrong. But as a eternal mother, why like he stopped?
Doing what?
Calling out Radha name, like calling Radha Kirtan or Radha name.
Kirtan, the Kirtan more.
Who wants to answer that? Vishnu Priya, you want to take on that one? No? Nitya Kishore? Why don't we chant Radharani's name? Why is Prabhupada restricting us? What is it about Radha? Yeah. What is it? We'll leave. Because, yeah, we have it, she should not be taken cheaply.
Because we don't know what can I say something?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I
No,
don't
you-
mean to interrupt you.
You're okay.
I don't know, maybe a little bold what I'm going to say, but because in Kali Yuga we don't have an idea or any clue of what it means to be a mother or a woman. Because we are so polluted and so contaminated that this
Well, that's true also. At least to some degree it's true.
Yeah. So we can
But
mistake.
we took and I think I gave an example with Sukadeva Goswami. He didn't speak Radharani's name because he was in the presence of so many other sadhus who wouldn't understand or appreciate Radharani. Could we really understand and appreciate her? We may be able to appreciate what we hear about her. She's way beyond. She's way beyond. Can't even begin to understand. You can read the books of the Acharyas and get an insight of what the nature of Radharani is. Rupa Goswami's, Raghunath Goswami, they speak about her in their service to her. But to put it out in a kirtan, it becomes, in other words, we're using Radharani we're trying to glorify Radharani, but it's not, because we don't really know how to glorify Radharani. The Acharyas just don't allow that to happen. We take it cheaply. How many times do you get to see Radharani's lotus feet? Once a year. And even some temples restrict that too. They don't even do it once a year. Oh, she's way beyond anything that we can imagine in terms of her bhakti. Even Krishna can't figure her out. Think about that one. He knows everything.
I want to say something. One second, I just wanted to say something. I think my feeling is that Prabhupada stopped the kirtan because they did it in the same approach than to bath in Arakund. If you do that in the same mindset,
yeah, we take a mantra and we make a song out of it, and then we we make it in such a way that it's very pleasingly melodious. So we're using Radharani's name in that way. Prabhupada didn't want it. It's just the Krishna's, the Shastras say, chant Krishna's name. If you want to chant Radharani's name, we chant it as Hare, which is the energy. We don't approach her directly and chant Radha. But sometimes on her appearance day, we sometimes chant Jai Sri Radha, just like we chant Radharani ki Jai, Maharani ki Jai, Varsanavali ki Jai, Jai Jai. We chant that sometimes. What is that song to Radharani in the scriptures?
Radhe Jai Jai Madhav
Radhe Jai Jai Madhav Gopurkaruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya. So sometimes we chant like that, that's nothing wrong with that. But that's done by Rupa Goswami. He composed that prayer. So we're following the acharyas. So we can do things as we follow the acharyas. The acharyas never chanted Radha in kirtan as a kirtan expression. Although sometimes at the end of the kirtan, after we glorify, we say Radharani ki Jai, or we say Radha, we say all glories to Srimati Radharani. We can say that. I mean, that's fine. The idea is not to simply make a sing-song out of her name.
I just want to share something with her, that in this age of Kali, in this age of very good. Hare Krishna.
I can hear you. I'll repeat the question. Go ahead.
Okay. No, it's not so much a question, it's just because I know Vrindavana's mood. So I was thinking that Lord Chaitanya is coming with the mood of Radharani. And in this age of Kali, we have been given Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So calling out to Lord Chaitanya is just like calling out to Radharani, according to me. Because he has that same compassionate, kind, loving mood that she has.
Right.
And he's so forgiving, he's so compassionate.
And
that
so makes things so easily available.
Right. Just my observation.
Yeah, that's a nice point, thank you. Yeah. That should be understood. Glorify Lord Chaitanya. Okay, 8 minutes was finished 8 minutes ago. Thank you. Okay, we have some announcements.
Hare Krishna! So we've been a bit off schedule today because of the initiations. The only way to get Eka Chakra not thinking about a schedule is if she's taking initiation. So Maharaja, if you don't mind giving her second initiation this afternoon, then maybe we can stay off schedule for a little while.
If it's on the schedule.
What a wonderful morning we've had. Congratulations again to our initiates. Congratulations. And thank you so much, Maharaj, for the beautiful classes you've given so far today. Thank you so much, including the initiation class. You've also been non-stop. So, Kanchanabja Prabhu, pop quiz. 4 questions, not options. Okay? And audience. 4 seems to be the magic number. Okay, question for you. Is Srimati Radharani a right wing or a left wing gopi?
Who's saying left? Who's saying right?
What? Nobody paid attention.
Left.
Okay, show them hands again. Who says
hands up?
Left.
Hands up for left wing, high, really high. Hands up for left wing. Hands up for right wing.
Are you preaching Krishna consciousness?
Guru Maharaj, the answer is
left wing.
Because left wing is better. I'm not saying anything about anybody else, but anyway, okay. Alright.
You have to understand what it means. Right wing means very obedient to Krishna, very sweet-natured, passive. And left wing means, I love Krishna, but if he does something I don't like, I'll let him know. In other words, they also exhibit certain moods, such as anger, or they criticize Krishna. He likes that.
Thank you.
So that's love, but in a contrary way. Sometimes you do that in the family just to get, things going again. You start an argument with your wife just to, break the boredom.
All right.
But the love is still there, that's the point.
Question 2. Raghunath Das Goswami offered how many obeisances every day? 2,000.
2,000. 1,000 was for? And 1,000 was for? Jai.
Okay, question number 3. Radharani is our blank guru. Prem Guru.
Prem Guru.
I'm trying to make sure he paid attention. It's okay, you can help him, that's fine. Yeah, okay, that's fine. No,
It's not really for me.
Alright, this is the hardest one. Guru Maharaj's least favorite sacrifice he's making in New Mayapur is? As he called it?
Austerity. That's what we learned.
And that was the moral of all of today.
So in terms of the schedule, now that she's back from her yagya, the schedule is, okay, so 4:30, we're coming back for class, but before that, will it still be 2:30 now? At 3 o'clock, there's the option to go on the tour, part 2 of the tour. And after that, 4:30, please come back for the class this afternoon.
So from 3:30 to 4:30.
Okay, 3:30?
3:30 to 4:30 we start in temple room.
Okay, great. So 3:30, you have some time to take prasadam, and then 3:30 for the tour, and back here for 4:30 for the class.
And also just a reminder that Guru Maharaj's books are still available for sale. And also there are many free gifts also on the table, so you're most welcome to take them all from Guru Maharaj, so please take those as well. And also we're going to be wrapping up the book table tonight, so this will be your last opportunity because of the early departure tomorrow.
Jai, have good prasadam. Hari Bol!
Sorry, there's one last announcement.
And one more thing.
2 more things. Okay. There's somebody lost a bead bag. It's a cream bead bag with a picture of Radharani and a white iPhone. So if anyone knows where that is, you can ask. You can talk to Eka, or who's it is? Excuse me. You can talk to Eka Chakra about that. And lastly, can we have some volunteers to